It's time for the Douglas Coleman Show. Mr. Smooth and Savvy is joined by guests from all walks of life, from the entertainment industry to authors to political and social commentators, the famous and not so famous, the controversial and the light and fluffy. We have it all. Now, here's Douglas Coleman.
Okay, please welcome to the Douglas Coleman Show, Elisa Di Napoli. Hello, Eliza. How are you?
Hi, I am good. Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for coming on the show. I appreciate it. So let's see. You're here to talk about, looks like you do a lot of things, yeah? You're an artist coach, hypnotherapist, multi-instrumentalist, singer-songwriter. Before we got on and we had the video on, I saw your guitars back there. What kind of music do you do?
I do a few genres. So mainly, I guess, started with indie folk, then proceeded on to more rocky tunes. Then I did some cabaret kind of song, like comedy cabaret. And then sometimes I do also some experimental music and some piano music, like kind of just instrumentals. So those are the genres that I like to play with. Okay.
Is your music up on Spotify and all the various places? Yeah.
Yes, it is, but under a different name, under my sort of artist name, which is Elyssa Vulpes.
Oh, okay. And aside from that, you've got a book out. Your book is called Dare to be Seen: From Stage Fright to Stage Presence. Why don't you tell us a little bit about the book?
Yeah, so the book is for people that are nervous going on stage and performing, whether it be actual, performers, actors, singers, musicians, or whether it be speakers. It doesn't really matter, because it is all about being seen, being heard, being vulnerable. And basically, I wrote this book because I suffered from performance anxiety for a long time, and I almost gave up completely being on stage and performing, singing, playing music, because I just didn't have a good time. And when I got to that point, I decided that that was not an option. I couldn't give up, because it would have been tantamount to, cutting my own arm. It just was not something I was willing to do. So I tried everything to tackle this problem, and a lot of things didn't quite work. And then in the end, I tackled it with hypnotherapy and did a lot of research on that and had it done on me and worked with a lot of clients. And then basically in the end, I thought, well, now that I am feeling a lot differently about performing, I should share this with other people, so they don't have to go through this process themselves. There's some hope out there. So that's what the book is about.
Well, I'm curious, because personally for me, I'm more terrified to go to the supermarket than I am to get up on stage. I've never had a problem with getting on stage, and I've done everything from acting to music to speaking. Why would somebody want to be a performer if it's such a terrifying experience?
Well, I can answer, according to me, just in my experience, I always wanted to share my music. I wanted to play for other people, because I write music to build bridges, connections, to feel like we're not just islands. And but the prospect of performing was really scary, and I just physically felt shaky. My fingers would shake, I wouldn't perform at my best. But it was a shame for me to give up, because it would have meant basically not being able to share my music with anyone, unless it's on some kind of digital format. But then let's face it, it's not the same as going and seeing an artist actually play live.
Well, that's true. I mean, you could just be a studio musician and never perform at all. I don't know. The joy seems to be in performing, don't you think? Yeah.
Yes, once you actually get in the right mindset. But if you're in the wrong mindset, you see it as a threat. You see it as people judging you, people basically maybe secretly thinking you're not good enough, and what are you doing up there, and all those kind of negative self-talk that can happen in your head if you are that type of person.
Well, yeah, it's interesting. I guess I'm just not that type of person. I always felt like when I would get out on stage that I'm not me. I'm someone else. And it was easy to sort of, slip into this character, whatever the character was. If it was acting, it would be a real different character with a script. But if I was playing music, well, now I'm the musician. I'm not actually Douglas. I'm just this musician guy who's up on stage. And for me, that was always a great escapism,
Right.
And if people laughed, if I said something and it was funny, that's great. What was harder for me was after the show, and people would come up and say things, and I would be really shy, intimidated. I just wanted to kind of go hide in the corner after I was done. But the actual part on stage was sort of, I don't know. So, okay, so how did you get over this? You said hypnotherapy, but can you break that down a little bit so people can understand how you got over this fear?
Yes. First, I want to just comment on what you said, that I think, that kind of mindset that you talked about, like being someone else, being the musician, that's a technique that, people could use. They could think, okay, I'm just someone else now, my alter ego, the musician. It is a possibility. However, the breaking down how I tackle this problem in me and other people is, it's a multi-step process. First of all, you kind of have to understand why this happens, because it is normal to be nervous to a degree, because we are kind of evolutionarily primed to be scared of rejection. We are very much social animals. If we got rejected back in the day when we lived in tribes, we might die. We might actually not survive alone. So it is normal to fear rejection. But when this becomes excessive, and that's when we need to start taking some action. Now, we might have this excessive anxiety because of what I call negative conditioning, which means, experiences where we have felt threatened, rejected, judged, and also trauma. And on top of that, there also is something called what I call negative mental rehearsal, which is basically what people usually understand as worry. When you visualize in your mind, you imagine all the possible negative things that can happen when you are in a specific situation. And, this could be going to the supermarket. It doesn't need to be being on stage, because basically it's anxiety. It's negative rehearsal in your mind of all these catastrophic things that might happen. So when you put together these two things, and it might be that you only have one or the other or both, then you get excessive fear of rejection. So when you then are in a situation that is tagged with that as a threat, that reminds you in any way, even just in a little bit, of a situation where you might get rejected, where you might experience the original rejection that you either imagined or actually happened, that's when the fight or flight response gets triggered. And so that basically means that your body goes into alarm mode. Your primal brain, your primitive brain, the amygdala, it's basically the alarm center of the brain, switches on, and you start to panic. You start to, adrenaline gets pumped into your body, cortisol, the stress hormone, gets pumped into your body. You can't really breathe very well. Like you start hyperventilating. If this gets really bad, you can start hyperventilating, and all kinds of other symptoms such as dry throat and shivers and heartbeat going really fast. And basically this is because in the past, if there was a real threat, like a lion attacking you, let's say, you would have had to do something about it very quickly. You would have had to really fight the lion or run away from the lion. So the first thing that needs to happen is to switch off this alarm system, because while it is on, you can't reprogram anything. You can't even talk rationally to yourself. And so that's the first step. Once that's done, that's when we really start using hypnosis. And we need to first assess whether there is trauma or whether there is negative conditioning related to performance anxiety. And we would do that with some question, putting the person into a state of hypnosis and then having some questions, or we could work on some negative beliefs and figure it out that way. But basically, that's something that can only really be done with a hypnotherapist in 101. If that's not the case, if that's not happened, if that's not part of the picture, but instead there's negative mental rehearsal, so there's a lot of catastrophic thinking, a lot of imagining of negative situations, then we can use hypnotherapy to deal with that. So using suggestions and positive mental rehearsal, and replacing that old negative conditioning with more positive conditioning, which could involve all kinds of things. It could involve, stopping these automatic negative self-talk, replacing it with positive self-talk. It could be about staying in the present and really being focused on the song or the message that you're giving. There's many different things that we can do. All the techniques, though, they work a lot better when we use hypnosis, because we bypass the rational mind, which is kind of the new kid on the block, and we go to the emotional brain, which always will win against the rational mind, because it was, it actually, the first brain, the primitive brain, is the first that was formed in us, then the emotional brain, then the rational mind. So we need to somehow go back to that emotional brain, and that's why hypnosis is so effective in that way, because it doesn't just stop at the rational.
Well, let me ask you something about hypnosis, because I've never done it, and people use it for all kinds of things. I mean, I've heard hypnosis can be used for weight loss, for people to stop smoking, for almost anything, basically. Is it true, though, that the people who go under hypnosis, that they have to want to be hypnotized? Because some people don't even believe that it works or that you can be hypnotized.
Yeah, hypnosis is effectively self-hypnosis. It's basically a state of focused concentration and relaxation at the same time. And it is something that the subject, the person, the client does to themselves, but they need a guide at first if they have never done it before, because it is very difficult to do if you have no instruction, So once you're good at it, once you've done it a few times, you can learn how to do it on your own. But basically, it's like this. Imagine that the hypnotherapist is like a guide in a foreign town that you've never visited before. You still have to go, you want to go to the supermarket, you want to go to the post office, you want to go to the beach. You don't know where these places are. The guide can say, it's over there, let's go together, take a step, let's go in that direction. But then it's up to you. You can just decide, no, I don't want to go in that direction, and then you won't go there. So that's how it works.
Okay. And it's been effective for you? You can get up on stage now and play your music and not be terrified of the people in front of you?
Oh, yes. I mean, I would like if I said to you, it was instant. Of course not. It has taken time. But yes, I am a million times better than I ever was. I mean, I think a few years ago, I wouldn't have been able to do an interview at all. So now I feel very comfortable with it because I've done it a bunch of times and it's been a positive experience. And that's kind of the key. You start the positive experience in your mind first and you prime your mind. You give it a model, because if someone doesn't know what it's like to actually have fun on stage, how could they possibly do it? It's not, it's not possible. You need to have some kind of model. You need to know what you're looking for, what to go for, and your mind needs that. So in hypnosis, you give the person a chance to figure out what this feels like, and then of course they need to actually go out there and help themselves by remembering what that experience was when they were just imagining it, and then have actually a better experience, which at first might not be perfect, but then it's about focusing on the things that went well and continuing to condition yourself by imagining what you want rather than what you don't. It's one thing that a lot of people don't know is that there is very little difference in the brain between what we experience for real out there and what we imagine experiencing. And this is actually shown in brain scans. So that if I gave someone say a keyboard, and I said to them, play this keyboard, play scales on the keyboard, and then I measured what the brain, I looked at the brain scans, and I would see certain areas of the brain light up and certain brain activity. And then I put them in the MRI scan and said, okay, now imagine you're playing these keyboard scales. The difference between one and the other is minimal. Of course, there is a difference, but it's very small. So that's why, you could actually learn better by imagining playing scales and then playing the scales. That would be a lot better than just playing the scales on the piano. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense. And it makes sense what you said about something imagined has the same sort of brain wave pattern as something real, that the brain doesn't distinguish the difference. I know that people who have very vivid dreams, myself included, sometimes I wake up and say, wow, was that real? Or I have to think about it. I wasn't sure if that was a dream or if I was really there. So when the brain is a wondrous thing, sometimes it's very scary, but it's definitely very powerful. We do have to kind of wind this down. So your book is called Dare to Be Seen. How long has the book been out now?
Actually, it's been out a couple of years, but I've just, I was attempting to publish yesterday a companion workbook to it. On Amazon, but apparently there's some problems, so it's not going to be out until next week. So the two books, the Dare to Be Seen book is a book that has the theory and then some practical exercises, and this workbook companion is more like a journal study aid, so that you can really help yourself by going through the exercises and be accountable. Be held accountable for having done all the exercises in the book. And then there's also an online course that goes with it if people don't have time to create their own hypnosis tracks and they want them done for themselves, and then there's that as well.
Okay, great. Well, we do have to wind this down. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Do you have a website that you want to give out?
Yeah, and I also wanted to, give out a free book for people that your audience basically. So I have a website, and it's elisadinapoli.com, and so if you go on that, you will find the all kinds of information about me, but also I'll set, if you want to put in the show notes, a link, a special link for just your audience. There you will be able to actually get the book for free, just be able to download it. And the let me see if I can remember I can't remember right now oh yes, here it is. It's just elisadinapoli.com/Douglas Coleman.
Okay. All right, great. We'll put that in the show notes. Then people can get a free book from that. Yeah. Okay, super. Well, thanks so much for coming on the show and sharing, and it was nice meeting you. Best of luck with the book. Sounds like you've got a lot going on.
Yes,
so I think you're
always
very busy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, take care.
Thank you for having me.